What would you do if the very man who took you against your will became the only one who could save your life? The scorching Dakota sun beat down on the dusty main street of Willow Springs as Clara Wittmann pressed a handkerchief to her throat. Heat shimmered off the hard dirt road, horses snorted at the hitching posts, and the smell of sweat, whiskey, and gun oil filled the air. She had arrived only 3 days ago, but she already felt the danger running beneath this town like a poisoned river. She was not here for adventure. She was here for answers. Her younger brother, Emmett, had vanished after sending troubling letters from this town. Clara had traveled all the way from St. Louis to find him, carrying nothing but her medical bag, her determination, and her quiet fear. Now she stood outside the sheriff's office, watching a crowd gather around a makeshift gallows. Voices rose in angry shouts. "String him up! Savage had it coming!" Clara pushed through the crowd, her medical training overriding her sense of safety. A boy, no more than 16, stood on a platform with his hands tied behind him. His long black hair brushed his shoulders. His bare chest was rising and falling, with fear he was trying to hide. A Lakota child. Just a child. Sheriff Briggs stood next to him, jaw clenched, eyes full of something darker than duty. "What crime has this boy committed?" Clara called, her voice clear and strong. Heads turned. A few men muttered at the sight of a well-dressed Eastern woman interrupting frontier justice. "Horse thieving, ma'am," Briggs said without looking at her. "And that's sheriff to you. Has he been tried?" "Don't need a trial." Caught him red-handed. Clara stepped onto the platform despite men trying to block her way. Every man deserves justice. Even a Lakota boy. "Justice," Briggs spat into the dust. "Where was justice when they butchered my wife and daughter?" "Get off the platform, woman." Clara opened her mouth to argue, but the ground began to tremble beneath her feet. Hoofbeats, loud, fast, angry. A lone rider burst through the crowd on a powerful black horse, kicking up a storm of dust. People dove out of the way as he charged straight for the gallows. Before Clara could fully understand what was happening, the rider leaped from the saddle in one smooth motion. A knife flashed, and Clara felt a strong arm wrap around her waist. She gasped as she was pulled back against a broad chest that smelled of leather, pine, and sweat. A blade glinted near her throat, not cutting, just warning. "Release the boy," the warrior ordered. His voice was deep and steady, his English clear but accented. She felt the vibration of his words against her back. Sheriff Briggs drew his gun halfway. "Tokala," he growled. "Should have known you'd show your face." Tokala, that must have been the warrior's name. "The boy first," Tokala said calmly. His grip on Clara was unbreakable, his knife held with perfect control. Even surrounded by guns, he did not tremble. "Let the woman go," Briggs barked. "You would hang a child for taking a horse to feed his family," Tokala said. "I take her to make sure he lives." He reached to his belt with his free hand, pulled out another knife, and tossed it to the tied boy. "Cut yourself free, little brother." The boy hesitated, looking terrified. "Go," Tokala said firmly. The boy obeyed, sawing the rope with trembling hands. Clara's heart beat wildly. This man was dangerous, wild, but he wasn't wrong. They were about to hang a boy without a trial. "This is madness," she whispered. "Release me, please." "Forgive me," Tokala murmured behind her ear. "But they understand only one language here." A strange shiver went down her spine at his voice so close to her neck. The boy broke free and scrambled down from the platform. A few men tried to stop him, but Tokala pressed his blade a fraction closer to Clara's skin. "Let him pass," Briggs ordered bitterly. The boy ran toward Tokala's horse. In the same breath, Tokala lifted Clara off her feet as if she weighed nothing, back toward the edge of the platform, and leaped off with her in his arms. "No, my medical bag," she cried as it fell behind on the wooden boards. "No time," he said, already moving. His painted mare galloped toward them out of nowhere. Tokala swung Clara onto the saddle sideways and vaulted up behind her. His arm came tight around her waist. Then he kicked the horse into a dead sprint. Gunfire exploded behind them. Clara screamed as bullets whistled past. Tokala bent low, covering her body with his arm like iron around her middle. They thundered down Main Street, knocking over a water barrel and scattering chickens. Shouts rose behind them as Briggs's men mounted their horses. More riders! More guns! The chase poured out of Willow Springs and onto the open prairie. The mare was fast, but with 2 riders their pursuers were closing in. Clara's bonnet flew off, her hair whipping into her face. She could barely breathe between fear and the heat of Tokala's body pressed to her back. A bullet tore through her sleeve. She flinched. "Are you hurt?" Tokala asked, voice strained but steady. "No," she gasped. "Hold on." The canyon walls rose ahead, red stone carved into twisting paths. Tokala steered them inside, just as another bullet struck the mare's flank. She shrieked but kept running. The canyon narrowed. Riders behind them slowed. Gunshots echoed off stone. When they burst out the other side, more riders appeared on the ridge ahead. "Damn," Tokala muttered. He turned sharply toward a dry wash. The mare slid down the steep bank. Clara clung to the saddle horn, certain they would fall. But somehow, Tokala kept them balanced. At the bottom was a small grove of cottonwoods. They hadn't gone 10 steps when riders appeared at both ends of the wash, trapping them. Tokala jumped down, pulling Clara with him. Into the trees. Bullets shattered branches as he dragged her behind a huge cottonwood trunk. She watched him check his rifle and revolvers with practiced movements. Sheriff Briggs's voice echoed through the grove. "Give it up, Tokala. Send out the woman, and I'll make it quick." Tokala raised his voice. "I have killed, but not your family, Briggs." "Liar!" Clara's heart pounded as bullets tore into the tree. They were outnumbered, surrounded, exhausted, and Tokala, her captor, her protector, looked like a man ready to die. Before she could speak, the wind began to rise, carrying the scent of rain. Thunder rolled across the sky. A prairie storm was coming, and everything was about to change. Rain crashed down in a sudden wave, turning the dust into mud and blurring everything beyond a few yards. Thunder exploded overhead, shaking the ground beneath them. The prairie storm had arrived like a blessing, hiding Clara and Tokala from the guns pointed at them. "Now," Tokala said. He grabbed Clara's hand and pulled her to her feet. They ran through sheets of rain, slipping through the cottonwoods, their boots sinking into wet earth. Bullets snapped through branches behind them, but the storm was too heavy. The men chasing them could barely see 10 steps ahead. Tokala dragged Clara toward the far bank of the wash, using the noise of thunder to mask their movements. She struggled to keep up, her dress heavy with water, her lungs burning. Finally, they climbed out of the wash and into the open prairie. Rain soaked them instantly, cold and sharp. Tokala didn't stop until they reached a cluster of rocks offering a little shelter. Only then did he pause, breathing hard. Clara leaned against the stone, trembling. Her heart pounded with fear, exhaustion, and something she didn't want to name. "You're hurt," she said suddenly, noticing the blood soaking his side. Tokala looked down as if only now remembering the bullet graze. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing," she said firmly. "Sit down." He obeyed, but his dark eyes studied her carefully, as if confused by her concern. Clara knelt beside him, tearing strips from her damp petticoat to press against the wound. "This will hurt," she warned. "I have known worse." Clara pressed the cloth against his side. He inhaled sharply but didn't move. The storm continued to rage around them, thunder rolling across the sky, but for a moment, everything felt strangely still between them. "You saved me during that chase," she said softly, her fingers trembling slightly. "You shielded me from bullets. A man who meant harm wouldn't have done that." Quote. Tokala looked at her with a strange, tired sadness. "I did not take you to hurt you." "Then why? Tell me the truth." The rain softened. The thunder rolled farther away. Tokala stared out at the gray horizon. "Because you are Emmett Wittmann's sister." Clara's breath caught. "Emmett? You know him?" He nodded slowly. Your brother knows truths that powerful men do not want revealed. He tried to help my people. He saw things he should not have seen. Now he is missing." Clara felt her heart twist. "You mean to trade me for him?" "No," Tokala shook his head. "I hoped to use you to force the sheriff to spare the boy. I planned to leave you somewhere safe. But now, things have changed." Clara sat back on her heels, the rain dripping from her hair. She felt overwhelmed, confused, terrified, and something more. Something she didn't want to admit. "What does Emmett have to do with the Lakota?" she asked. Tokala's jaw tightened. 20 years ago, someone staged a massacre. Made it look like my people killed settlers. It started a war. Many of my people died, including my family. Clara froze. "Your family?" He nodded once, pain flickering through his eyes. "The man behind it all is Lucian Barrow. Your brother found evidence of his crimes. Evidence that could free my people from blame. Barrow took 3 Lakota children to force Emmett to stay silent." Clara felt sick. 3 children? Yes. Children young enough to be afraid of their own shadows. His voice cracked slightly. "Your brother tried to save them. Now he is gone. And they are still in danger." A heavy ache settled in Clara's chest. For Emmett, for those stolen children. For the man sitting beside her, carrying pain older than his scars. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "I want help." His voice was low, honest. "I want justice. And I want those children free." Clara closed her eyes. The prairie had swallowed her old life whole, leaving her with a truth she couldn't deny. She could not walk away. When she opened her eyes, she spoke with steady resolve. "Then I'll help you, not because I trust you fully yet, but because it's the right thing to do." Quote, Tokala stared at her for a long moment. Rain dripped down his face, mingling with the blood on his side. A strange look passed through his eyes, something like respect, or gratitude, or both. "You are braver than most people I have met," he said quietly. "And you're not the monster they think you are," Clara replied. His eyes softened in a way that made her chest tighten. They waited under the rocks until the storm passed. When the clouds parted, the sky glowed with fading golden light. The land stretched endlessly around them, washed clean by the rain. Tokala stood and offered her his hand. "There is a place nearby, a hidden hollow. We can rest there until nightfall." Clara hesitated only a moment before taking his hand. As they walked, the air cooled and the stars slowly emerged overhead. The storm had left a deep silence behind, broken only by their footsteps and the soft call of a distant coyote. Under the gathering night sky, something unspoken settled between them. Something fragile, unexpected, and impossible to ignore. Clara shivered from the chill. Tokala shrugged off his damp outer wrap and draped it around her shoulders. "You didn't have to do that," she murmured. "I know." Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, she felt the whole world narrow to just the two of them, lost on the prairie, bound by fear, danger, and something new neither understood. Tokala looked away first. "We leave at dawn," he said. "We find the children. Then we find your brother." Clara nodded, though her heart beat faster for reasons that had nothing to do with danger. Because beneath these stars, something was beginning, something neither of them could deny. The first light of dawn touched the edge of the prairie when Clara and Tokala broke camp. The air was cool, clean from the storm, carrying the quiet promise of a new day. But danger waited ahead, and they both felt it in their bones. Tokala moved carefully, his wounded side stiff but healing. Clara checked his bandage once more before they mounted the borrowed horse. "You should rest another day," she said. "There is no day to spare," he replied softly. "3 children are waiting, and your brother too." Clara swallowed hard. Hope and fear mixed inside her like tangled wires. She climbed up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. He steadied her hands with his own. They rode toward Willow Springs through a quiet morning. Birds called from the sagebrush, and the sun climbed slowly, turning the sky pink and gold. But underneath the beauty was tension. Clara could feel it in Tokala's posture, in the way his shoulders tightened each time they passed a ridge. By the time they reached the edge of town, Tokala slowed the horse and guided it into an abandoned barn. "I will wait here," he said. "A Lakota warrior entering this town again would bring nothing but trouble." Clara nodded. "I'll find out what I can." She stepped out into the main street, her boots sinking slightly in the soft mud. People stared at her torn dress, the dirt on her skin, the tired look in her eyes. But she kept her chin high. She was done being afraid. She made her way to the sheriff's office, but the moment she saw the crowd gathered in front of it, her heart sank. Sheriff Briggs stood on a wooden crate, shouting at the crowd. "We ride today!" he roared. "The Lakota devil took a woman, attacked our men, and now he wants our land. Anyone who stands with him is the enemy!" Clara pushed through the crowd. "Sheriff Briggs!" Everyone turned. Briggs froze, shock spreading across his worn face. "Miss Wittmann," he breathed, "you're alive?" "Yes," Clara said firmly, "and Tokala did not harm me. He protected me." Whispers rippled through the crowd. "You don't know what you're saying," Briggs snapped. "He took you." "And you were about to hang a 16-year-old boy without trial," Clara shot back. "Why should I believe your idea of justice?" Briggs turned red with anger. Clara reached into her bag and pulled out the silver spur she had taken from one of McCready's men. "This," she said loudly, "belonged to the men who killed settlers at Morning Star, the same men who killed your family, Sheriff." Gasps spread. Briggs stared. She continued, her voice steady. "You blamed Tokala's people because someone wanted you to. Someone powerful. My brother discovered the truth, and now he's missing. I will not let lies destroy more lives." Dr. Farrow stepped forward from the back of the crowd. "She is telling the truth, Sheriff. I treated one of those men myself. White men dressed as warriors." Briggs's face crumpled like a man punched in the stomach. His shoulders sagged under the weight of the truth. I didn't know," he whispered. "You didn't want to know," Clara said gently. "But now you can do what is right." The sheriff closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, they were clearer. "Tell me what needs doing, Miss Wittmann." Clara took a breath. "We need to find the children Lucian Barrow took. They're being held at his ranch. And my brother may be there too." Briggs nodded slowly. "I'll help." Within an hour, the sheriff, a handful of honest townsmen, Dr. Farrow, and Clara rode out of Willow Springs. Tokala joined them outside town, his presence quiet but powerful. Some men tensed at the sight of him, but Briggs lifted a hand. "He's with us," the sheriff said. "He's fighting for justice, same as any of us." They rode hard toward Barrow's ranch. Smoke rose in the distance as they approached, and Clara's stomach twisted. When they crested the ridge, they saw chaos below. The main house was burning. Men were yelling, running, shooting. The scene looked like a battlefield. Tokala's face tightened. "We're too late." "No," Clara whispered. "We're not." Tokala pointed to the far end of the ranch. "The root cellar. That's where Barrow hid them." They rode down the hill fast. Bullets cracked in the air, but they didn't stop. They reached the cellar, just as two men came rushing out with guns drawn. Briggs and Tokala fired almost at the same time, knocking them back. Clara leaped from the horse and ran inside. "Children?" she called. A faint sob answered. She found the three little ones huddled in the corner, 2 boys and a girl, thin and shaking. "You're safe now," Clara whispered, gathering them close. "You're safe." Tokala appeared at the doorway, breathing hard. "We must leave. Now." They carried the children out just as a final fight broke out in the yard. Barrow himself stormed out of the burning house, shouting orders, his clothes soot-stained and his face twisted with rage. Tokala stepped forward. "Barrow!" Barrow turned at the sound of his voice. "What do you want, savage?" "The truth," Tokala said. "For my family." For your victims." Barrow raised his gun. Tokala raised his, but Clara stepped between them. "No more killing," she said softly. "Not today." Barrow sneered. "You think you can stop me?" "No," Clara said, "but justice can." A single gunshot cut through the air. Sheriff Briggs lowered his rifle, smoke rising from the barrel. Barrow fell to his knees, shock passing across his face before he collapsed into the dirt. Silence followed. Slow. Heavy. Final. "It's over," Briggs said quietly. Tokala stood still, breathing slowly, watching the man who had destroyed so many lives finally lose his power. Clara reached for his hand. He closed his fingers around hers. The children were carried to safety. Barrow's men were disarmed. The fire was put out by evening. When the sun dipped low and the sky turned to deep blue, Clara and Tokala stood together on a small rise overlooking the quiet ranch. "You kept your promise," Clara whispered. "You found the children. You found justice. And I found something I did not expect," Tokala said softly, turning toward her. "What?" she asked, heart beating fast. "You." She stepped closer. He brushed wet hair from her cheek, his touch gentle, unlike the fierce warrior she first met. Under the stars, beneath the wide Dakota sky, they kissed for the first time, slow, careful, full of everything they had survived. In that moment, Clara knew the truth. He had taken her against her will. But somewhere between fear and danger, between storms and gunfire, something deeper had taken root, a bond shaped by courage, a love shaped by fire. And under those stars, they truly fell in love.